out of the newamerican.com, where prominent celebrities and leaders of the Congressional Black Caucus have endorsed a major nationalization of local police forces with an August 25th letter to President Obama, creating for the creation of a federal police czar and greater federal controls over law enforcement in the wake of the Ferguson, Missouri shooting and protests.
You know what will solve this? More centralized power.
Well, and that is the
Who's the
proposal
organization that's giving these police officers their militarized stuff?
The feds.
Okay, let's just make a federal position then.
It's a terrible idea, but this is what some people believe, is that, oh, well, when the local governments are out of control, we've got to have the feds come in, is what happened during, for instance, the civil rights era. The feds had to come in and make sure that people could go into the schools equally in Alabama. And, in this case, the FBI has been investigating the criminality by the police in Ferguson, Missouri, and we need to have the feds come in and make sure that the police departments are behaving well. Every now and then, the FBI will send in some agents into a misbehaving police department in some sort of a public relations effort to make things look better. These things have happened before.
And police have been prosecuted by the feds before for civil rights violations and that sort of thing. And of course, so
it makes them look like the good guy.
Right. And the what do you call it? I've seen people use federal courts to strike down state laws and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm not entirely opposed to the tactic of escalating things up the ladder to the centralized government if there's some hope of getting the central government to strike down something that the local government did, because of course whatever I can do to get the government out of my life, good. Unfortunately, it does have this bad effect that these are power grabs in many cases by the federal government, where they're dictating what a local government can do, and that simply the federal government will then use force to threaten and stop the state and local government.
Yeah, so this is a disturbing idea. Quote, the administration must appoint a federal czar, claims the letter, housed in the U.S. Department of Justice, who is specifically tasked with promoting the professionalization of local law enforcement, monitoring egregious law enforcement activities, and adjudicating suspicious actions of local law enforcement agencies that receive federal funding. The letter is signed by all these different people, including some actresses and blah, blah, blah. The letter is a direct result of the shooting in Ferguson, Missouri, and the subsequent protests. And then there's another excerpt here. Allegations that law enforcement has not applied the laws fairly upon black Americans are based on statistics showing that blacks are convicted of an inordinate number of gun crimes and receive stiffer sentences for the same gun crimes. And Senator Rand Paul has made a very public issue of that disparity. The Washington Post libertarian blogger Radley Balco noted on July 22nd that last year, 47.3% of those convicted for federal gun crimes were black, a racial disparity larger than any other class of federal crimes, including drug crimes. And in a 2011 report on mandatory minimum sentencing for gun crimes, the U.S. Sentencing Commission found that blacks were far more likely to be charged and convicted of federal gun crimes that carry mandatory minimum sentences. There's no doubt that there are some real institutionalized racism among the police departments, among many police departments in America. But asking the federal government to step in and solve these issues, I don't think is going in the right direction at all.
Yeah, I don't think that the federal... Look, it's not as if the federal government is in the habit. They're talking about, we've got to make sure that the police departments are professional. The federal government goes into another country and just starts murdering people. I don't think...
The FBI doesn't even take notes. They don't record interviews.
Right. It's crazy. The idea that the highest law enforcers in the land, the premier law enforcers in the land, don't have to audio tape.
Or was it they do take notes? They do take notes, but they
take notes.
Don't record.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I knew what you meant, and I was confused. They just take notes. They don't audio record anything that goes on.
It's a policy. They have a policy against it.
So if they decide, they get together, they decide to lie about what happened, or they misinterpreted what somebody said, a jury never gets an opportunity to hear it.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.